Welcome to the latest video review for Arcade Renaissance. Today we're going to be taking a look at the independent fighting game Big Bang Beat developed by NRF. Like a lot of other Doujin games developed in Japan, Big Bang Beat takes its inspiration from another popular title. The characters, setting, and situations are all borrowed from the Alisoft adult strategy game Big Bang Age. Despite its rather interesting origins, Big Bang Beat delivers an experience that rivals anything even from the much larger development houses. The gameplay is finely developed and balanced surprisingly well, but is it unique enough to stand alone through a sea of other independent 2D fighters? Absolutely. The game features a selectable cast of 11 fighters that span a lot of the traditional archetypes from other fighting games. Everything from a Super Saiyan-like character that powers up to a blonde version of himself, to a knife-wielding maniac is covered in the game's cast. What's impressive is that despite the wide range of fighting styles and looks of each of the fighters, no one really seems out of place in the eclectic group. Somehow it all fits together in a grand assortment of misfits. The game features several modes to fight through in single player, including a story mode, which lacks any sort of intrigue since it's just a series of one-on-one fights with a bit of dialogue in Japanese, survival mode, and training mode. There's also a versus mode to compete against either a friend on the same PC or a computer opponent. The game doesn't feature any net play, however, which is something that I really wish more competitive fighting games would make a priority during development. The controls for the games are pretty basic and instantly familiar if you're a fan of the Neo Geo fighting games. Each of the characters have 3 basic attacks, light, medium, and heavy, but the effects of these different attacks will vary widely based on the character chosen. For example, Ajito the Dark can use his heavy attack command to throw a dagger at his opponent. The dagger will then remain on the field and can be used later in a special move that will send all the daggers in the arena towards his opponent for a multiple hit chain. In addition to these standard attack buttons, there are 3 additional buttons the game uses. The B button, or boost button, acts similarly to the boost in Hakuto no Ken. By pressing the B button during an attack animation, you are able to cancel the remainder of the animation and dash forward. This is able to be followed up with another attack, so you can increase the length of your combo chain substantially. This is done at the cost of some of your boost gauge, which is the blue meter you can see at the bottom of the screen. This gauge is filled by collecting jewels that are released by any attack animation that connects with your opponent, even if the attack is guarded. Either character can collect the jewels released to restore their gauges. The B button can also be used for other advanced techniques such as air recoveries to escape from air juggles and dash away, or counters by following up a guarded attack by pressing the B button. This is similarly to the alpha counters in the Street Fighter Alpha series. All of these techniques, as well as each of the character's signature super moves, are done at the cost of the boost bar. The second of the additional buttons the game uses is the Enhance button. This is a simple taunt that your character will perform for some slight in-game benefit. Some characters will increase the damage they cause with each hit, while others may gain some additional life. All characters aside from Haida are limited to taunting 3 times around. Haida, however, is unique because when he taunts the 4th time during a match, he'll transform into his super mode, which is the aforementioned Super Saiyan character I mentioned above. Lastly, the P-Charge button is the final button the game uses. The game uses a meter system for its special moves, which is akin to the Super Meter in the Art of Fighting series. This meter is found immediately below your life bar. Each special attack you perform requires a bit of energy from your super meter. The super meter can then be refilled one of 2 ways. Either you can wait and let the meter fill on its own, which it will if you don't perform any attacks, or you can use the P-Charge button to restore the meter in bursts. Like the King of Fighters series, while performing a P-Charge, your character cannot move and you're susceptible to any attacks by your opponent. Probably the best feature in Big Bang Beat is the game's combo engine. Like Guilty Gear, Big Bang Beat has a free-form combo engine that rewards innovation within the system. Though this does prove to be a lot to master, it is definitely immediately accessible, and even a new player will begin learning attack strings within just a few minutes with the game. There are some built-in limitations in the system that would prevent otherwise easy-to-find infinite combos. There is a gravity system that will increase the rate of fall that a character has with each successive hit in a chain, as well as a gentle pushing system that will push a character further away from his or her opponent until the character reaches a point where it is impossible to follow it up with another attack, even with a boost cancel. The basic system reminds me a lot of the Last Blade series, where the simplest combo chains start with an ABC maneuver, or in this game, light into medium, medium into heavy starter. This simple combination is then able to be branched off into multiple chains until you have an exhaustive string tree that is diverse enough that most combos, even by top-tier players, will be slightly different based on personal preferences. The system is a bit on the loose side, which means that for someone used to the CPS chain system that Capcom is known for, you may have a bit of adjustment time while you work on your timing for your combos. But once you learn the timing, it becomes second nature, as the controls are incredibly responsive so long as you're using an arcade stick or a gamepad. I would not advise playing the game with a keyboard, but I think that's pretty much an expected trait of the genre. The game animates extremely well overall. The sprite work, however, could use a bit shoring up, especially when being played in full screen mode. This problem isn't noticed when it's windowed, since it's not as rough, since the sprites and the characters are not as pixelated when windowed. The backgrounds are a bit bland, however. All of the backgrounds in the game are entirely predictable locales, right down to the final boss's swirling vortex. To be fair, though, they are well done and heavily detailed. I'm sure that there's probably fan service introduced into each of them for players of the Big Bang Age series, but for someone like myself who never picked up the previous title, they're just simply unremarkable. It's a small complaint, though, since the game looks and feels well designed and developed, just not quite in the same caliber of the Third Strike or Accent Core series. The music and sound are the lowest points in the game for me. I have a hard time really getting into the neo-rock soundtrack that is present in both this game and games like Guilty Gear. I personally started turning the music off and using my own soundtrack through iTunes while playing Big Bang Beat. The sound effects are also a little disappointing. They do the job, but sometimes there doesn't seem to be enough bang with the game's hits. The animation makes up for this, but you sometimes yearn for the louder crack to go with the great animations. Overall, the game is a great addition to any fighting game fan's library. Though it hasn't received the hype that some Doujin games have seen over the last year or so, I'm convinced that it's only a matter of time till Big Bang Beat gets noticed. It is in my opinion that it's a better game than Melty Blood, which itself went on to receive a release both at arcades and on the PS2 after its original Doujin PC release. It's an incredibly solid title that is well worth the $25 cost of admission. It may be overlooked by some because of its superficial similarities to the Arc System Works fighting games, but anyone who dismisses it because of those similarities are missing out on one of the best 2D fighting games released so far this year. The lack of online play and limited game modes are really one of the only two things that are holding the game back from receiving a higher recommendation. But I would not be surprised to see this game end up on a lot more competitive radars in the near future. It's well worth the investment, especially if you have a good fighting game community in your area that is willing to try out something new.